I don't know what was wrong there. Maybe it's because my hat was on backwards by accident, or could be the putters. I think that's it. I'm not a bad putter because of me. I'm a bad putter because of my putters. It's the arrow, not the archer. I think that's the issue.
75 years later.
So how do I go from making 0 out of 8 to 4 out of 8? Stay tuned to find out. Well, I don't know about you guys, but if you're like me, you've had that frustration before. Being so close to getting a circle 2 putt, maybe for birdie or maybe even for eagle, and you're so close, yet so far. Putting is one of those things where you definitely know you should be practicing a lot, but even when you don't practice as much as you should, it's hard to justify how we miss so much when we can make a lot from 20 or 30 feet. Then the moment we get to 35, 40, maybe even 50 feet, we're just missing like crazy. It doesn't feel like 20 feet or about 7 or 8 meters is that big of a deal or that big of a jump, but it really is. This is really frustrating to deal with, so how do we fix it? Well, there are 4 things that we're going to talk about. The first is to use your legs. The second is to adjust your timing. The third is to improve your release angle. And the fourth is to improve your release height. Your legs are the strongest collection of muscles in your body. So if you're not using them when you're putting, you're actually missing out on one of the best ways to improve your circle 2 putting. Okay, sounds great, Antonio, but how do I actually get my legs involved in my putt? Well, unlike most things in disc golf, this is actually pretty simple. The way you engage your legs in your circle 2 putt is to bend at your knees and be really loose around your hips. To bend your knees is really simple. You just kind of squat, and depending on the distance that you're trying to putt, and as you practice this, you'll figure out just how much you need to squat. When I talk about having loose hips, it's a very similar principle to the backhand and the forehand throw. We want to be nice and loose in our hips so that we can engage them. And in the circle 2 putt here, it's more about being limber enough to really squat down, allow your hips and glutes to engage as you explode into your putt. In a putt, you have a lot of hinges that you have to move, all at the same time or all within a millisecond of each other. And if one of those hinges is off just a little bit, it can throw everything else off on your putt. Perfect timing on your circle 2 putts is as your arm is extending out, your legs are at the peak of their release. And what this means is that the transfer of power from the ground, from starting at your feet, is coming all the way up into your arm. The reason why this is an issue is because if your arm is ahead of your legs, okay, you're not going to get the full power from your legs. So that's the first issue. You're still going to be in a squat and you're going to end up swinging, and we don't want to swing extra on our putt. Now, if your legs are ahead of your arms, this is where we can really leave our mark before the disc is out of our hands, because if your legs are fully extended, all that momentum, you're probably going to get a little bit of air. And if that disc is lagging behind, not only are you going to release it low, but you're also going to be mid-air and the disc is still in your hand, which is not PDGA legal. And the best way to figure out this timing is to just practice it, is to go to a practice basket, whether in your backyard or at a local course, and just work on the timing of all of this. You are going to be able to dial in and find what works for you specifically. So as long as you just put that effort in, it's going to work out great for you. During this practice, one of the things you'll want to work on is your release angle. This aspect of circle 2 putting is all about whether you need to putt on hyzer, flat, or anhyzer. And since every putter has a different putting rhythm, different putting preference, whether stagger or straddle, push, spush, or spin putt, this is going to be completely different for you. Release angle also is dictated by the type of putter you are using. Chances are if you putt with a really understable putter, you're not going to putt on an anhyzer line. But if you use a more overstable putter, you're probably going to like the idea of you putting a little anhyzer so that it flexes back towards the basket. Ultimately, you need to find the release angle that's comfortable for you and helps you get to the basket exactly where you want it. If that requires swinging the disc out on hyzer, then you do that. If that requires putting a little anhyzer or throwing your putt a little bit flatter and nice and straight, then you do that as well. Once again, as you're working on timing, you're going to want to work on this release angle to find out what works from you from different distances. Additionally, you should also pay attention to putting height. Similar to release angle, putting height is going to vary for every single golfer, especially if you're a spin or a push putt. So if we look at this clip of Greg Barsby from the 2022 Texas State Championships, we see that Greg uses a big push putt, and he definitely has a little flick of the wrist on it to get that additional distance. But one of the best ways that Greg Barsby gets distance on his putt is by giving his putter a ton of air. From my observations, he definitely putts the highest. It is absolutely insane how high he gets his putter in the air. And that is great for somebody with his putting style because it gives the disc an opportunity to get to the basket. And here's the thing, because he has more of a push putt, that disc really isn't spinning, so it's not going to fall forward super hard. It's going to more glide in, and it's not really going to skip. So if and when he misses, because that's the nature of the beast, we don't make every single circle 2 putt we attempt, he's not going to be very far from the basket. But that does mean that he's giving his putter more opportunity for the wind and other elements to affect it. And so this kind of comes down to risk reward and your putting style. So as you work on timing and as you work on getting your legs involved, focus on your release angle and your release height as well. Now that is a lot that you have to kind of mentally focus on and prepare when you're working on your putting. So I strongly recommend that you take it slow, work on one thing at a time. I would say go in the order that this video talks about. Start with getting your legs involved more, because you're going to have to get used to that feeling before you can work on the timing. If you work on timing without getting your legs involved and then you try to get your legs involved, it's going to completely mess it up. So start with legs, then move on to the timing of your putt, and then work on angle and height. And the reason you can do those two after the timing is that those aren't necessarily going to affect the timing of your putt. So go ahead and work on those things and break them down into a couple different sessions. And over time, you're going to see a lot of improvement in your putting stroke, both in the circle and obviously outside the circle. So with that being said, I want to encourage everybody watching this video to apply these 4 tips and watch your confidence improve and your score drop dramatically. Until next time, everybody, have a great round. Not gonna lie, the hardest part about these putting videos is that when I go to practice my putt afterwards, it's all messed up. So I just finished recording some stuff and then I went to practice on my putting, and sure enough, I got a lot of work to do to recorrect everything.